A girl named Rachel comes from a family of Mormon fundamentalists. Today is her birthday, and a spiritual interview was conducted in honor of the occasion. Rachel saw a tape recorder for the first time in her life and became very interested. According to the rules, all spiritual interviews of church members aged 15 and older must be recorded. Her father and brother Willie were present at the interview. As required by the rules, Rachel assured her father that she was righteous and without sin. The girl also denied that she associates with people whose worldview contradicts the teachings of their church. After the interview, Rachel asks Willie to show her the cassette, but he said it was intended for God's purpose. Before bed, the mother tells her daughters their favorite story about a princess who saw a red Mustang. In reality, it was a story about their mother who couldn't find Rachel anywhere that day. It was the red horse that led the woman to her daughter. At night, Rachel couldn't sleep. Different thoughts visited her. Convinced that everyone was asleep, Rachel went out of the house, came into the garage and saw a television. It was something completely new to her. Rachel also found the cassette on which she played a recording of her own voice. The outside noises woke Willie up. There were other tapes here, including rock music, which is prohibited among Mormons. But Rachel couldn't resist and listened to the song, feeling absolute happiness. Hearing the brother's voice, Rachel hurried to turn off the recording. Willie tried to take the cassette away from her, but his sister wouldn't give it back. A struggle ensued between them. The mother caught them in this inappropriate situation. She immediately thought that something bad had happened, but the daughter assured her that Willie had not done anything wrong. In the next scene, we see Rachel secretly recording her diary on a cassette tape. She tells that a few weeks ago she heard an angelic voice, and this event greatly excited her. Like other children in the community, Rachel attends school. She believes that the voice on the tape was sent to her by God. One day Rachel felt unwell. Soon she realized that she was pregnant. Rachel is convinced that the same thing happened to her as to the Virgin Mary, who also heard the voice of God. One day the mother found many hygiene packets under the daughter's mattress and demanded an explanation. Rachel admitted that she was probably pregnant. According to the girl, it happened after she listened to the tape. Of course, the mother had her own version of events. She told her daughter to get in the car and drove her to the town to buy a pregnancy test. It turned out to be positive. Rachel was happy, thinking it was a miracle. But the mother obviously didn't share her mood. The father listened to Rachel's tapes and asked her to read a prayer. Then the father announced that he had spoken to his acquaintance Mr. Brooksby. His son Elijah kindly agreed to marry Rachel tomorrow. Of course, the girl did not rejoice at this news and denied that she had sinned. But the father insisted on his decision, saying that the one who actually did it was not fit to be a father to the child. Rachel was absolutely convinced that she had become pregnant after listening to that tape. Willie also denied his involvement in what had happened. But the father was unyielding and said that Willie would leave their family tomorrow, and Rachel would marry Elijah. At night, Rachel couldn't sleep and cried. She realizes that marrying Elijah Brooksby is wrong. After a short reflection, the girl decided to run away from home. She quietly sneaked into the sleeping parents' room to steal the car keys. Suddenly the mother woke up. Surprisingly, she handed Rachel the keys herself. When Rachel's little brother started crying, the father got up to soothe him. He did not notice the hiding daughter. Rachel ran to the door, but her older sister Sarah saw her and immediately woke up the parents. They chased after Rachel, but she stole the car and fled, unaware that Willie had been in the back the whole time. Rachel intends to search for the father of her child, the man whose voice she heard on the tape. Soon Rachel arrived in the nearest town, Las Vegas. She was surrounded by neon signs and bright lights. The girl grew up in a completely different environment where there was nothing like it. Seeing a man playing guitar, Rachel said she was looking for a musician, only younger. He advised her to go to the bar where different musicians often perform. However, Rachel was not allowed to go there because she was still too young. Suddenly a bouncer threw out several guys from the club. Clyde was immediately interested in beautiful Rachel. It turned out that he was partially deaf, but it didn't bother the girl at all. She asked the guys for permission to go with them. They didn't mind. Suddenly Willie appeared, who was going to take Rachel home. But the girl didn't want to go with her brother and gave him the keys to the car. In the end, Willie went with Rachel and these guys. Clyde was driving drunk and using foul language. It seemed like he didn't care about the rules. Unlike these guys, many things are not allowed for religious Rachel and Willie. Willie tries to convince Rachel to tell their parents who the real father of the baby is. However, Rachel continues to insist that it happened because of the cassette. Clyde and his friends, who are in a music band, brought the new acquaintances to their apartment. Clyde bragged about his rifle, then two girls in provocative outfits entered the apartment. One of them immediately noticed Rachel's unusual beauty. When everyone found out that Rachel was pregnant, they were surprised. But an even greater shock was that she had never used a cell phone. At night, when everyone was asleep, Rachel recorded an audio diary. She called Clyde the spawn of Satan because of his penchant for all kinds of sin. Rachel is very different from all these people who live as they please. She tries to behave and talk like them, so as not to stand out. So far, however, she has not been convincing. The next day, Clyde told her that she looked crazy. But Rachel wasn't offended at all. Willie asks Rachel to go back home with him and tell their parents the truth, but she leaves with Clyde and his friends. Willie had no choice but to join them. In the evening, the company came to the bar where a rock band was playing. Rachel feels uncomfortable among so many drunk and cheerful people. Clyde, on the contrary, begins to do crazy things. Rachel went to the restroom. She is upset because what the guys on stage are singing is very different from what she heard on the cassette. In Rachel's opinion, Johnny's singing is not quite music. The company had fun all night. At some point, Rachel told Willie that she was ready to confess. She would say anything to get Willie to leave her alone. Rachel asked Johnny for a private conversation. He was a little bewildered, but agreed. Meanwhile, Clyde asked Willie if he was really the father of Rachel's baby. Willie denied it. He would never do that to Rachel. Rachel tried to explain the situation to Johnny, not expecting him to kiss her. When Clyde saw this, he didn't like it. Willie, who tried to ride a skateboard, bruised his arm badly. The guys urgently took him to their house and gave him strong painkillers to put a splint on. Being in an inadequate state because of the substances, Willie was talking nonsense. Suddenly Clyde told Rachel that he doesn't like her because she doesn't even know who the father of her child is. The girl seemed upset, but she offered to show Clyde something. After listening to the cassette, he said that it was a song from some old rock band, but definitely not Johnny's. Of course, Clyde doesn't believe Rachel's story that the musician on the recording is the father of her child. At night, the girl was crying. To calm her down, Clyde promised that they would find the guy no matter what. Rachel was confused when Clyde asked her to marry him in case they didn't find the musician. The girl agreed and asked not to tell Willie about it. Kissing Clyde, she thanked him for his help. At night, the company went out to have fun again. While Willie hid with a girl named Snow, Clyde and Rachel broke into some house to get food. Meanwhile, Snow offered Will something forbidden. He wanted to refuse, but in the end he couldn't resist. Clyde stole food from the fridge for his beloved. She said she would like to live in such a luxurious house. Asking the girl to wait here, Clyde went to another room and lay down on the bed as if nothing had happened. While Willie was swimming with Snow in the pool, the owner of the house noticed Rachel and called the police. The girl tried to escape, but the man was not going to let the criminal go. It turned out to be Clyde's father. The guy said that Rachel was with him and told her to go to the car. The police arrived. Willie tried to run away, but crashed into a pole. He was arrested. Driving away from that house, Rachel suddenly heard the same song playing from a red car on the road. She remembered that once a red Mustang also pointed the way for her mother. Rachel followed the red car while Clyde told his father that he just wants to help Rachel, who allegedly had a virgin conception. The father ordered his son, who had recently been released from prison, to stay home. Officers tried to identify Willie, but he didn't have any documents on him. Rachel's journey led her to a house where she saw a blonde woman. Rachel knocked on the door and said she was interested in the car. The woman invited her inside, telling the man who lived here that this girl wanted to talk to him. It turned out that the man and his ex-girlfriend were singing on the recording. Rachel outright told that she was pregnant, and sincerely assured that it happened after listening to his song. Rachel did not expect to hear from the man that she had her mother's eyes, but otherwise she looked like him. The man also stated that he loved her mother. The man played guitar for his daughter. All this time Rachel was looking for a father for God's son, and she found her own father. The girl went to the restroom. Suddenly the phone rang, which Rachel had picked up in the car. It was Willie. He said he was in jail. Rachel said goodbye to her father and drove over to the brother, who was silent. Apparently, he blamed his sister for everything that had happened. Rachel took out the cassette, saying she was ready to confess everything. But Willie believes that the family will not accept him back in any case. After recording a farewell tape for Willie, Rachel finally returned home. The parents are still determined to marry her off. Despite the daughter's pleas, they did not allow Willie to come back home. Clyde misses Rachel very much and soon sets out to find her. Meanwhile, Rachel's biological father came to the police station, saying he wants to take his nephew. He introduced himself to Willie as a family friend and was taking him home. Preparations for the wedding are underway in the village, while Clyde's car breaks down. He is angry, not knowing what to do next. Rachel was wearing a beautiful white dress. Willie and his uncle saw Clyde running away from the burning car and picked him up. The man directly said that he was Rachel's father. Rachel mentally begs God to get her out of this mess. She believes that Clyde loves her. Rachel and Elijah stood at the altar. At that moment, the red Mustang pulled up to the church. Rachel immediately got into the car, telling the father that Clyde was her husband. The father asked her to get out of the car, promising that nobody would judge her. However, the company drove away anyway. At some point, Willie asked to stop the car, saying that he wanted to go back. As they said goodbye, Rachel gave him the tape of her confession. Back at home, Willie played the recording while the couple dropped Rachel's father off at his house, and then set off. Rachel knows for sure that this child is the son of God sent from heaven. Rachel and Clyde settled by the sea, away from everyone, and Willie was welcomed back into the family.